Hello, my name is Doctress Neutopia. I want to give my testimony about being raped when I was around 23 in Greensboro, North Carolina, in my apartment. The rapist was a Vietnam vet. So he was a professional killer. And it was a terrible experience. The police did nothing. I called them directly after the rapist left my apartment. They said because I let him into my apartment, then my testimony was pretty invalid. Invalid. Several days later, with my mother, I went down to the police station and talked to an investigator. He said that since I had sexual experience, that the courts would probably not convict the rapist. I want to explain that during that time that I was young, I was living during the sexual revolution. And what that meant for women is that you gave in to men's desires. Women were having sex a lot during that period. There were a lot of unwanted pregnancies. And there was a lot of manipulation and seduction that was going on. So I was becoming wise to all of this and decided I never wanted to have sex again unless it was real love. And that's when this rape happened, is during this time that I had decided not to be part of the sexual revolution and looked more wisely about what is love and what I wanted in life. So perhaps you could call it moral intelligence. I wrote an essay about the rape. I was inspired to write it because an organization that I knew about, an anti-nuclear weapons magazine, asked writers to write an essay on how to end war. So this rape, to me, symbolized a lot of aggression that was happening in the world, and what happens to some Vietnam vets when they come back after they've been trained to be murderers. And it gave me a way to make a testimony without the court system, because the court system absolutely failed me. So anyway, I thought I would read this essay to you. And I want to also explain that I was young at this time. I was under the influence of Christianity. I was raised in an Episcopal church. A lot of the language in this essay is sexist because at that time I didn't realize how common sexist language was, especially in the South during that time. So I will start reading this essay. Preface. To eliminate the threat of nuclear war means the salvation of society. An evolutionary leader of divine inspiration is the only way to change the demolition of civilization. And global warming was real during this time. It's even more real now that we are facing the collapse of civilization unless we can change our war-oriented culture, war and rape culture, into a peace and love culture. A new covenant between man women, animals, and plants must be established to stop the mass slaughtering and mass starvation. The following true essay illustrates how the divine intellect can halt murderous aggression. Raping love. Saturday night was a sad night for me. I had gotten some ice cream with Steve and then went to his house. Since that time, I have turned vegan. While watching a thunderstorm approach, he tried to seduce me by luring strokes to my hand, which made me even sadder. I asked Steve where his wife was. "At work," he said. "But she doesn't care. We got married for political reasons. She knows I have 2 other lovers beside her anyway, and now I've decided I want you to be my lover. You don't have to worry about becoming pregnant, for I had a vasectomy 12 years ago." I passionately said, "I don't believe in adultery. The next time I make love to someone, it will be for life. I want to love a man so much that I can wake up beside him the next morning and love him eons more." I recited a poem, Chastity. "I will be abstinence all my life if I do not find a man of high delight. Chastity, the birth control of the right, for I know wrong, a sensual flaw when love is absent from man's call. I will wait until my mate shows his manhood in God's sight and loves mankind with all his heart to make the peace revolution start. With his might, with God's light, the sun will shine in all men's hearts. So man and woman are God's great art." Now let me say that I do believe in birth control. I've used birth control before. So abstinence is not exactly what I recommend. We are having a population explosion on this planet, and we need birth control more than ever. What's a shame? Then he says, "What a shame you are celibate. You are depriving your body of its sexual needs. Your poem sounds like something in the 18th century. We could feel so much pleasure making love together." I responded, "You sound like a sex machine." The wind from the storm was hurling branches and heavy raindrops began to fall. I went outside to the porch. I went outside from the porch, where the TV noise engulfed the conversation. The film on TV was a documentary on the NATO armed forces. A military preacher dressed in camouflage gave the communion of Christ to the men as the maneuver began. Then the soldiers jumped into their Warsaw-packed tanks and moved up the countryside of Germany, planning the strategy on how to kill their brothers in foreign countries. "Steve, I have to go," I said. "The double talk in life is making me so unhappy." I left his house, walking in the light rain, watching the lightning break in the sky as I wondered if love was alive. When I reached Tate Street, the street where entertainment clubs were located, my depression hit my head. There was so much talent prostitution. The new wave musicians had as much feeling as a neutron bomb, and the lyrics of their songs were so pessimistic. Their dancing was up and down as if their bodies were lead bullets. On the corner sat a man who said, "Where are you going, lady?" In a burst of emotion, the words from the darkness of my heart were, "I hate life. I'm ready for death." I kept on walking up the street, upset with the bankruptcy of the arts, the death of love, I thought. At the stoplight walked up Tim, an acquaintance I had met on Tate Street. He said he was going over to Mark and Debbie's, for they owed him money for marijuana. Mark and Debbie were my cohabitating neighbors who sold marijuana. I started the conversation by stating I felt I had no freedom of expression in the town. He said he could do anything he wanted in the world. No one was going to make him do anything he didn't want to do. I asked him if he ever felt forced to pay taxes for atomic weapons. Instead of answering, we kept on walking, and he asked me if he could come into my room. We entered the apartment. I sat down at the desk. He sat down in a chair beside me. He asked to see my poetry, so I handed him some poems to read. For 2 hours, he pretended to read my works of love. As he sloppily flipped through the pages, I asked him if he had been drinking alcohol. His reply was yes. I read him the poem I had just created that night. Good night. I have never had a good day in all my human life. I have never had a good night in my whole human life. I'm sick of living in this infernal grave called the USA, where every day is just the same, getting worse every night, with noise, pollution, air pollution, water pollution, causing people to get brain tumors. The day I have a good day will be a day I can mail a letter for free, and no human soul has to spend the night in miserable poverty. He said he thought my poem was true. I moved to another chair in the room. My eyes were about to close as I wished he would go, but he kept on reading my poetry. I thought he was either inspired or insane to give so much attention to my art, which no one else in the world did. I was so sleepy, I wished he would leave. He asked me if he could stay until the neighbors returned so that he could get his money. So I said, when they come back, please turn out the lights and shut the door. After lying down for about a minute, I felt dangerous vibrations. I got up to tell him to leave my home. As soon as I came in the room, he was taking off his pants and turned off the lights. Deadly rape was in the air. I screamed. He attacked me, knocking me on the floor, and gagged my mouth. Then he pulled a pillow from a chair and put it over my head. Shut up, you bitch, you goddamn woman. Take off your underwear and open your legs, said the savage. But I refused to move. If you don't take off your underwear, I'm going to twist your head off. With a pillow over my head, he had the ability to suffocate me. He started tearing off my underwear, pulling me into the bedroom and on top of the bed. Then when I tried to speak, he gagged me as if he was going to smother me. I thought he would poke my eyeballs out. When he lifted up the pillow, I managed to scream again, rape. But with that voice, he got more violent with my tender body. I knew I might be killed if I attempted to wake my neighbors, and crying was not going to stop his vulgar actions. When he drugged me onto the bed, and then he asked me, he said, if you don't scream again, I'll take the pillow off your head. So of course I, made body motion that yes, I won't scream again. So he took the pillow off, and I was able to see the church steeple out the window. I lived beside this big Baptist church. And that really gave me some inspiration. So I started to pray, God, I want to live. Life is a sacred gift. Tell me, Father, how can I get this barbarian off of me? Forgive me for cursing life tonight. The rapist started twisting my mouth harder as he said into my ear, you are going to take your hand, make my dick hard, and put it in your pussy. If you don't, I'm going to tie you up and fuck you all night long in your ass. Do you hear? You can take your hand now. My hands did not move. I thought about civil disobedience and going limp. And that's the strategy that I took, is I just went limp. I did not follow his instructions, and I wasn't going to participate in the rape. And that strategy worked for me. I spoke through his fingers, which were still over my mouth. So I fought for words of wisdom. And this is what I said. You can't help me in your perverted action. You can't make me help you in your perverted actions. He insanely said, you love it, you love it. I'm going to fuck you like a whore. I'm going to fuck you until you bleed, you motherfucker. I commanded, quit cursing God. Shut up, he said. After several minutes, I attempted to speak again. And he had his hand was off my mouth then, but I was afraid to speak. And certainly if I was going to speak, I was going to try to attempt to change his behavior. So it took courage to be able to speak at that point. So then I asked, why do you hate women? Do you hate your mother with aggression? Do you treat your mother with aggression? And then I asked him if he treated the women in Vietnam this way. He covered up my mouth and started to kiss my ear. I wanted so much to pull away from his kiss because his kisses were death, but he held me tighter. I could feel my heart beating harder. I could feel his heart beating harder. However, his hand loosened up. Please let me talk to you, I pleaded. After several minutes, he said, do you promise not to scream? Yes, I replied. I swiftly recited the following poem. Kisses. The only way to kiss is with love, the kiss of love. Peace is a kiss causing a radical change, a clean kiss of virgin lips. He began having intercourse, thrusting his penis into my pelvis, causing my psychic to feel the pain of modern-day rape. You were treating me like a mannequin. Do you treat animals like a smut too? I guess masturbation would not help you. Your problem is that you're selfish and lustful, for you don't even care a bit how I feel. You don't care if my desires are fulfilled or not. Is your cruelty male chauvinism, I asked? The lowlife said, yes it is. I don't want love from you. I want to fuck you until you're dead. I replied, you, sir, are with a woman who stands for women's rights. I whispered to him as my integrity began to climax. And what I want is a man who loves me enough to stand for peace. I want a man who has enough courage to work to solve the injustices of our government. For I, rapist, am a gentle woman, and I want to be loved by a gentleman. You and I are not lovers, for you do not love my mind. You have taken away my free speech, my basic human right. The largest muscle of man is his brain. By using brute force means your brain is insane. You remind me of the military. Mindless strength is our enemy. While still having intercourse, I asked him if he loved children, but he did not answer. Well, rapist, do you know that sex act creates children? I don't believe in abortion, but I certainly do not want to have a madman's baby. Abortion is necessary because of men like you. The sex act is a sacred act because it creates life, and you are raping the art of life. I'm not raping you. You're submitting, he sickly said. I vehemently replied, you are holding me down, taking away my free will, and you dare say I am submitting? Am I free? You are holding down a liberty-loving person, and the divine intellect does not like what you are doing. Be quiet, he said with anger. I'm beginning to feel guilty. Why don't you go to sleep? You ought to feel guilty. How can I sleep with you on top of me? I intensely said. You are physically hurting me and abusing my body. I don't want to hurt you, he stated. Well, you are, I said. Why don't you get up? Because your acts are in vain. You will never be able to reach an orgasm, for our minds are not connected. True love is mental love, for we are human beings created to love each other's souls until eternity. Beyond black holes to new universes, the human race could go if we but loved. I am not your true love throughout time, or you would be working to save our lives. You are not satisfying me, the rapist said. If I get up and put my clothes on, will you scream before I leave? Impotency struck his body. No, I said. I will get up and make some tea so we can talk reasonably about your terrorism to me. Your depravity towards women will get you nowhere, for you are wrestling with the strongest thought of all. The maker of life is love. And at that point, he had gotten up, put on his clothes, and sat over on the other side of the room. So at that point, I had regained my power. And it was a very empowering moment at that point. So then I said, North Carolina law is capital punishment for first-degree rape. So, brother, you better get your head together and be thankful I do not believe in the death penalty. The U.S. bureaucracy has raped justice over and over again by making bombs to kill our world. How close to rape is death? He got up and got dressed. As I watched him, I felt pity for his ignorance. He went to the front door, and with confusion on his face, he said, Libby, you don't know a thing about love. As I watched the criminal walk away, my thoughts had passed over words to the silence of the metaphysical world. The law of love will be heard. The punishment of the consciousness are prison bars, and the only way out is to repent. God, I will never hate life again. And finally, I'd like to read you this last page. This is just kind of a poetic words that that I wrote down during that time. What is love? Modern chaos has tried to drain me of my class, grace, and taste. A slave of indignity, laboring to be sucked into technological plebeian poverty. How can a human not be distressed with the lack of principle between woman and man? Is becoming myself, filled with the universal mind, the knowledge for the future century? What is a virtuous man is the ultimate question. Alone, a noble woman is nothing, for her love is humankind, suffocating in promiscuous cities of oil addiction, stagflation in the air, where who is fair? God is commanding love everywhere. Let us breathe pious thoughts again. Beloved friend, the crisis is the absence of God, of love. Great romance of politics is optimistic. True love is alive, the world is saved, and the higher ignorance will go away to set us free to build a beautiful world where the individual is bound to the obligation of her natural inclination. God's will, growing peace, obeying the rulers of wisdom. Genius and the earth turns, evolution's golden stone. During interesting times, the right way to love the people is spiritual revolution, reincarnated. What riches of vision a man holds, omnipresent wisdom. Oh, how can a human not believe the soul shall cure nuclear insanity? One world, the light of physics, our genius, the philosopher king. So I thought I'd read you this because since that time I realized, hey, you know, it's the philosopheress queen promoting that new archetype in architecture that can protect us from the global climate change and start healing the planet from the way that we live now, that these sprawling cities represent cancer cells, into bringing about an intentional planetary system. And that's using our minds, using the best research available, and to retool the universities to build our ecologies, ecological city designs. So reading this essay, I see how much I have transformed in 30 years. It's really amazing what education does and how life experiences create richer and deeper human beings. So if you're young, write, because then when you're old you can see how you have shifted and why we need to listen to elders, elderesses. So thank you very much for this opportunity to be heard by you. Thank you.